Flyers win last night.
Wow,
Sorry,
it felt that way, though, with their play.
Yeah, they looked ugly last night. Kevin Durso, of course, covers the Flyers for 97.3 ESPN.com. He's set to join us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. We'll get a couple takes and thoughts from him on what he saw last night. They won the game, but did you leave impressed with that? We'll get his take coming up. Don't forget, you can watch the Sports Bash live right now. Just go to our website, 973ESPN.com, or use your free mobile app and watch the Sports Bash today and every day at 973ESPN.com or on the free mobile app. And right now, joining us live on the video stream and on the radio, of course, he is 973ESPN.com Flyers insider Kevin Durso as he joins us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. What's up, Durso?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
We are all good. We are all kind of looking back at that game last night. And look, they got to win. They needed it. But, man, you're almost wondering if Chuck Fletcher's looking through the book of, hey, can I find a defender somewhere?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I kind of my take on from Saturday, I'll say, is my thought when they lost that game the way they did in Boston was the message is no help's coming. Like, don't be waiting for help here. You got to figure out your own problems and fix them if you want to be a playoff team. You're not going to get immediate help by getting somebody in a trade or anything like that. It's going to have to be something you address yourself. And I told Josh last night when I was on game night, I don't think that, a win last night was going to be satisfying unless they completely dominated the game and outplayed New Jersey from start to finish, and clearly they didn't. Clearly they still had some of the same flaws. They were better in certain areas. I think obviously you can point to the power play as a success. They scored 2 goals in the power play. That's a huge thing. They were better in their breakouts to an extent, but not nearly good enough. They were better at the forecheck once they did get control, but they weren't completely there in every area. So they still have a lot of things to work on, and that's something that they're going to be looking to do when they get back on the ice on Thursday.
What did you think about Ghost? I thought he played very strong. He actually logged in just about 22 minutes, and he was +2. So I thought him and Provorov looked very strong, and if that's sustainable, then absolutely that's a help.
Yeah, I thought he looked good for his first game back. I don't think that the expectations for him should have been too high since he basically sat out for roughly 10 days with no ice time in the middle of his COVID situation. And for him to come back, basically get 3-4 days of ice time for himself and 1 practice with the team, I thought that was a successful performance for him. I thought he was as good as you could have hoped for in this game. I'm not saying he was perfect by any means, but he wasn't your weakest link on the defensive side either, and that's an encouraging thing for him.
Now, you wrote at 973ESPN.com that you felt the defensive zone play is flat out lazy. So is that benchable, fixable, or just one of those things that was just an observation that is happening too often?
Well, it's definitely happening too often, and I do think to an extent it's benchable to an extent because I think you saw that with Eric Gustafsson. I think that's the reason he was the odd man out. What you would expect a guy like Mark Friedman, who has the most, who has the least amount of NHL time among this defensive group and is probably the most likely to be the first guy out when someone returns from an injury or whatever the case may be. And he was playing on the second pairing with Travis Sanheim last night. So I think that's a message sent for Eric Gustafsson that he, what he was doing and his turnovers and everything like that, you can't have that happen. I do think it's also fixable because a lot of their mistakes are self-inflicted. I tweeted last night during the game that if you're a Flyer defenseman and you get the puck on your backhand in the defensive zone, the outcome is either an icing or a turnover, and it felt like it was happening everywhere. And I quickly amended it later and said that unless your name is Ivan Provorov, because it seems like Ivan Provorov was making the right play, the smart play, and the most effective play. And just about everybody else, I think just every other defenseman I can think of in this game, even, like I said, Shane Gostisbehere wasn't perfect, but first game back, he gets a bit of a pass. But Justin Braun, Mark Friedman, Travis Sanheim, Robert Haig, they're either forcing an unnecessary icing or they're turning the puck over in their own zone, and it just leads to more sustained time for the opposition. It leads to quality scoring chances for the opposition, and it's what's leading to the goals against. They haven't, this team doesn't have a problem scoring goals. They've showed that. They can score goals. They've scored 6 once, 5 a couple times. They've gotten the ability to score goals. It's not a problem for them. They can do it, but they're allowing too many shots, and it leads to too many goals as well.
We all know Carter Hart is the future, but after the game in Boston, he's throwing his stick at the crossbar, and he's frustrated, and AV goes to Moose the next night. Now, they got the victory last night, of course, and we know that Carter Hart's going to start the next game against the Devils. But what if he struggles, and what if it continues to happen? At what point is it, hey, we got to get wins? I thought Scott Hartnell said something pretty interesting on the post-game show yesterday. It's a 56-game season. If Moose gives you a better opportunity, do you have to look that way more?
I think so. And, I told Josh last night, it was the first question he asked me last night was why go to Brian Elliott? And I said, well, first off, you do need to get Brian Elliott some regular work, because if you don't, then he's going to be rusty and not ready to play when you do need him to come in. You can't just overwork one goalie and rely on him so much in a shortened season. You need to have some balance there. But I said, perhaps this is the guy who gives you the best chance to win that game tonight. And sure enough, I mean, they needed Brian Elliott to be outstanding in that first period, a lot of quality chances. You've talked about the breakaways, Broads, like that kind of thing. They give up odd man rushes, hit a couple posts, and surely they got lucky in the third period when the Devils were coming in waves, hitting posts, and the Flyers get that opportunity and find a way to score. I think the Flyers scored, off of two different turnover situations where they get a scoring chance right there, side of the net, front of the net, whatever it may be. And whether it's a wide open net like Nolan Patrick had or a big rebound with a wide open net like Joel Farabee had, doesn't matter. When you bury those, it can change the outcome quickly, and sure enough, it did in this situation. But I think you go to Brian Elliott as you need to, as you feel like you need to, and I wouldn't have been surprised. I think that was a question coming into Alain Vigneault's availability today was who's going to get the start tomorrow? Is it going to be Brian Elliott? Because they sure have played better in front of him than they have in front of Carter Hart, and Carter Hart hasn't given them what they've expected either. So is it going to be Brian Elliott? They're going to go back to Carter Hart tomorrow. But don't be surprised. I mean, you're going to need Brian Elliott at some point this weekend, I would imagine, because it's back-to-back against a team like the Islanders. You're going to need him at some point. So they'll split them up again, I would imagine, and you're going to continue to use him to see where that goes for him and see how successful he can be, because, you're getting everything you could ask for out of Brian Elliott. He's a 35-year-old backup veteran goaltender who's giving you the ability to win a game, and that's all you can ask for from this guy at this point.
Well, are we sitting here questioning then Hart? Are we wondering if there's a problem? I mean, is he turning in? I mean, gosh, we have Ben Simmons in this town. We got Carson Wentz that needs to be fixed. Are we now saying that we're starting to question whether or not Carter Hart is who we saw last year?
I think we're questioning some things about him, and I think we're questioning it because I think when we put the spotlight on any athlete in a key position, I mean, the guys you mentioned, like a Carson Wentz, the quarterback gets a lot of the attention in football, so the goalie's going to get a lot of the attention in hockey, and we're going to question anything that seems to be just not right with him for whatever reason. So if he's either, maybe he's allowing too many rebounds, maybe his positioning's a little off, maybe it's just something in his head. I think I heard a lot about when he was struggling in that game in Boston, and it's not like the struggles were all on him, but when he was having those struggles in that game in Boston, right away, here come the comments about it's another road game. Last year, he wasn't good on the road. How about this year? Same thing, same story, and it doesn't mean that that's really the narrative for him, but he's got to work that out himself. He's got to find a way to calm himself down and get back in, get back out of his head kind of, and just play the game. Because when he doesn't play inside of his head like that, when he's not so mentally incapacitated like that, where he just plays the game the smart way, the way we've seen him do it all this time so far, where he's such a mindful guy and he pays such close attention to detail. And when he's doing those things, he's as sharp as can be. And that's what we need to start seeing from him moving forward, because something is just a tick off with him. It's not that far off. I think, he's shown some of those other games too. I mean, you think about those Boston games, how he kept them in a couple of them at different times. So he's shown the ability to do it. He's just got to carry that over for a full 60 minutes in certain situations, especially when the opposition is coming at you in waves like that. And that's the other big concern, is that there's no relief for him either. He just keeps having to stand in there and take blow after blow, essentially. It's that boxer in the ring that just can't get back up after constantly taking punches. You got to give him some relief at some point, because he's not going to stop them all if you're allowing 40 shots a game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm definitely in negative mode when it comes to this team right now. I think I texted you the other day saying, if this is the version of hockey I'm getting, I don't even know if I can watch the whole damn season, and that's saying a lot. But there was a positive in yesterday's game, a couple of them, even though it was brutal at times. I thought they got back on the forecheck better throughout spurts in that game, specifically late, where that goal generated by Scott Lawton getting in on the forecheck, creating the turnover behind the net. And I think that one led to, if I remember correctly, that was Joel Farabee's goal to kind of give him that lead. That was impressive to me. I thought at times I liked their forecheck, getting in on the defenseman and forcing them to make some turnovers.
I thought that during that second period, the early part of the second period, and I know you're talking about a goal in the third period, but that early part of the second period, that's the team I remember from last year. That's the team that could dominate in waves and not allow the opposition to get moving through the red line half the time. They couldn't get out of their own zone, and that's the Flyers team we came to really like, where they were pressuring constantly. They're all over them. They're skating circles around them. They're cycling the puck throughout, and that's when they're at their best. It was there for parts of the third period, but I think you saw from basically the middle of the second period when Ivan Provorov just, the one mistake he really made in that game was he just flat out stopped skating on a delayed penalty call. It leads to a goal. Here come the Devils. They're awake. They're ready to go. And that carried over until the Flyers scored again about 7 minutes into the third period when Nolan Patrick gave them the lead again. And from there, I think the Devils hung their heads a little bit because one opportunity that didn't go their way where they turn the puck over, it leads to a shift where there's sustained pressure for the Flyers. They get the goalie down and out. It sets up Nolan Patrick for that goal. And now all of a sudden they're trailing again. They'd hit 2 posts in that third period to that point. They'd come really close. They're probably thinking, what do we have to do to score a goal? We can't seem to buy one right now. So that takes a lot out of the opposition in that sense. But they did do better things on the forecheck. That was one of the areas that I thought they did improve on. They didn't improve on the area that I think is the most important, which is the puck management side. I think that's the area where they still need to get a lot better. But it's good to see them have that aggressive side in the offensive zone and try to continue to carry the play there, because there were too many in those earlier games. There's just too many times where they're looking for the perfect play and a bad pass breaks up an opportunity, or they're not hard enough on the puck in the corners or behind the net and they lose a battle and it goes the other way. You can't have that. You've got to sustain some pressure, and I thought they did a better job last night of sustaining some pressure in the offensive zone.
How much are we not – I mean, neither one of us, and shame on us, have not brought up Couturier, but – what you're watching closely every night, the fact that, like, not having him and what the trickle effect has really been.
Yeah, it's pretty gigantic at this point. And I say that because I remember when we were doing over the holidays, we did the State of the Team show, and I said there was 3 players this team couldn't afford to lose, and one of them was Sean Couturier among the forwards. And I mean, throw in Ivan Provorov and Carter Hart as well, just because you need to have a goalie like Carter Hart and you need to have a defenseman like Ivan Provorov to kind of carry that unit. I think what you're seeing when Sean Couturier is out of the lineup is he sets the tone for the rest of the forwards from a defensive standpoint. The reason I called some of that play lazy is because I see forwards who hang out at the blue line in the defensive zone waiting for the defenseman to make the play and don't go in and try to help them a little bit more and give them a shorter outlet pass, something where they can get the puck tape to tape and get a clean outlet. Instead, they're making them try to stretch it out. That's what leads to a turnover or an icing call, because you're trying to make a stretch pass that's 40 or 50 feet in front of you and not a short pass that's 10 feet in front of you that could lead to more open space and lead to more speed through the neutral zone and lead to a cleaner outlet. Sean Couturier, I think, kind of sets the tone with that, because he does play a very smart positional game defensively, and I think that rubs off on everybody, especially the younger guys. I think, I throw into the younger guys group a guy like Scott Lawton even, but it rubs off on Nolan Patrick, and it rubs off on Oscar Lindblom and guys like that who do have some good two-way abilities to their game. But I think when he's not there as that role model, it does show very drastically what happens when they don't have that example to watch every single time. And they haven't had that example. It was he played 45 seconds of that second game, so they played 1 game with him. That's it. And so for the last 6 games, they haven't had that example there. Hopefully they're going to get him back soon, and he was skating on a separate rink the other day, so he's working his way back. And that's another good update too. He was on the ice the other day. Phil Myers was back as part of the regular main group at practice today, and while he's not going to play on Thursday, Alain Vigneault said he's real close, and who knows, that could mean the weekend. Certainly next week is possible for sure. So some reinforcements may be coming, and that could be a good thing for the Flyers to see them at full strength and see what their capability is, because right now we're not really fully able to judge this team without 2 really key missing pieces.
What can you say about the start of the season for JVR? He's getting right where he pays his bills, right in front of the blue paint. Beautiful tips. Last night, both of those tips were outstanding. He could be a 35-goal scorer. Now, it's not going to be sexy 35 goals, but I don't care how. I care how many.
Yeah, and you know what? We've seen this before from him. He scores in bunches a lot. So we've seen this before where he can go out and just have a scorer's touch for 2 weeks and then he'll go quiet. He's kind of that's how it goes for a lot of goal scorers. It's not just him. Goal scorers can be totally on their game, score 7, 8 goals in a 2-week span, and then come back and have nothing for the next 2 weeks. But I don't think we've seen it this early in a season in a long time. And that's what's really impressive, is that for the first few games of the season, he's just come out, found a way to be in the right position in a lot of situations. And I do think that sometimes the layoff has helped him in that sense, because defenses aren't as tight checking as I think they should be early in the season. So when they're on a power play and he's setting up shop where he does right in front of the net, he's probably left a little bit more unmarked than he should be. And when you do that, he's as good as anybody at tipping shots and getting some traffic to the net and taking the goalie's eyes and getting in his way. So he's doing everything that fits his role, and he's getting the payoff for it, which is, it's great to see for him, because I think there were times last year where he was in the right spot in a lot of situations and couldn't buy one. He's not having trouble with that at this point. He's been probably their best and one of their most consistent forwards from a goal scoring standpoint and a point production standpoint all season.
Kevin Durso at Kevin_Durso. Flyers and Devils part 2 tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. They'll play the Islanders on Saturday and Sunday for a little back-to-back to close out the month of January before they open up the month of February against Boston. So these 2-game sets continue tomorrow night against the Devils. Kevin, take care, pal.
Thanks, guys. Take care.